Everyone is talking about the VW crisis, and that's no surprise. With 11 million vehicles affected, a recall which could cost 6.5 billion euros, the potential for up to $18 billion worth of fines, a CEO who's been removed, and a business that's lost around 30% of its value, this is by anyone's standards a monumental crisis. What we say though is it's how an organisation responds to a crisis that determines the reputational and financial impact. So why is it that the blood is still flowing? Well, although VW did three things right, they recognised the problem, they haven't hidden away from it, they've been very transparent, even saying we screwed up. Even though they've launched an immediate investigation, and even though quick action has been taken, not least in the departure of the CEO, in a crisis of this magnitude, it's not enough to stop that damage. Why is that? Well, more than why is that, what can we learn from this situation? Well, I think what we can learn is that VW has a fantastic reputation, a really strong brand, one which is known as being reliable and high quality. When a crisis happens to a brand like that everyone trusts and respects, the damage is even greater because the fall is even further. What does that mean for you, for other organisations? Well, it means that you need to consider your own reputation, the things that are most important to that reputation, the values and the qualities for which you're known, and run a reputational risk assessment against that. What kinds of events would most strongly cut across your reputation? By identifying that, you identify the kinds of crises that can do you most damage. The second reason why I think this crisis has been so hard for VW to deal with is because it's been internally generated. This is not a power cut. This is not a natural disaster. This is not even a terrorist attack. This is something that the organisation did to itself. Why didn't they stop that happening? Well, it's very hard for organisations to confront unpalatable truths like managers or senior executives may cut corners or may behave in a way that goes against what is expected of the organisation. But those internally generated crises are often the most damaging. So, in your own crisis management planning, do think the unthinkable. Don't just consider fire, flood, power cut, IT failure. Think about the human crises which can do you even more damage. And finally, think about your own culture and the governance within your organisation. Much better to prevent a crisis in the first place than have to deal with one. So embrace a culture which encourages staff to identify and raise where they see a problem in the early stages, and have checks and balances in place to identify where the system is being bucked. I understand from German media reports that staff and a supplier had identified this potential issue with emissions years ago, and yet either it wasn't picked up or people didn't want to hear that news. Make sure your organisation doesn't fall into the same trap. If a crisis can affect VW, very reputable organisation, it can affect anyone. Let this be a wake-up call to all organisations that no one is immune from crisis, but we also have a responsibility to do everything we possibly can to stop the crisis happening in the first place. For more crisis management insights, please subscribe to this YouTube channel or take a look at our website www.insigniacomms.com.